Hey, welcome to Quick Take, James Caps. This is where we talk about the questions that are on the minds of executives everywhere. How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm super great. It's a beautiful day here. Got lots of energy and lots of caffeine today, so ready to jump in.
Awesome, that's great. So, we talk about it being everywhere. So, I was in DC this week
Hmm.
and I was at a conference and it really struck me. So, I was speaking about, professional development and internal influence and it had a lot of energy around it because I think that's super important for
Absolutely.
all of us professionally. And it was really interesting because I had people there that were EVPs at big companies. I
Hmm.
had GMs, presidents, it was just a kind of a really big room, meaning that a lot of diversity in terms of where people came
Oh,
at
different.
their
Yeah.
roles. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I say that because I got a lot of comments afterwards. When people find out you're an executive coach, it's kind of like, "Hey, I have this problem. Can we
Right.
sit
Right.
down? Can I
Right.
lie down?
Yeah.
And can you
Virtual
talk to
couch.
me?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I get this a lot. I have to be honest, especially when people will say, "Susie's amazing about helping me tease this out or get really
Hmm.
clear." And I'll tell you, what I'm hearing right now, and these I got three people who came to me. They said, "Can I schedule time with you because I'm at a time I'm really not happy in my career. I don't feel challenged. I don't like my boss."
Hmm.
Just a
Hmm.
lot of different things that feel and what really strikes me is I would just want to go, "Why are you doing this when you're at the bottom of how you feel?
Right.
You're desperate, like all these things." Because when you think about having leverage, you don't
Oh,
have a lot of
absolutely.
leverage.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be a good topic to talk about your next role.
I couldn't agree more. And I think this is a complicated topic that really warrants a couple episodes, I think. And
Yeah,
maybe
it's a good
today we'll
idea.
talk about really, when should you be looking for a job? Because I think your point was a very good one, which is you're at a conference, you're with executives, and these people are now miserable. And
Yeah.
so maybe rather than how, let's take that for the second episode. Let's talk about when. And I think
Okay.
that's equally important. And I think that if we spend a few minutes helping people to position themselves or knowing when to position themselves, knowing how to do that, at what time to do that, it's equally as important as how to do it.
Okay, so we're going to talk how or when today.
We're going to talk about when today and how
Okay.
tomorrow.
Okay, that sounds good. And so I guess the question is for me, I think when is now?
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that's probably what you were feeling when you're talking to these folks. Because when somebody comes up to you and says, "I'm miserable, I'm not happy," blah 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 blah
Hmm.
blah, it's too late, right? Now it's not too
Completely.
late, obviously, and you are driving towards an outcome there. But my recommendation is you should always be not looking for another job. I don't want to make it
Yeah.
sound like you should always be quitting your job, but as an executive, you should always be exposing yourself to new opportunities. You should
Yep.
always be thinking about what that is, when that is, or what's going on out there, what other companies are doing, and I think that that's a current thing. You should be doing that now. So
Hmm.
I hear from a lot of people I talk to that I'm going to start looking for a job when my son graduates. I'm going to start looking for a job in whatever. The truth of the matter is now is the time. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you have to. It's kind of like a health club, right? You don't go to the health club and start lifting huge weights, starting doing major reps and start killing yourself. You've got to start slowly and you got to start now. So I think
Yeah.
that that's really my first piece of advice is, now is always the
Yeah, and it's funny because what is that fear of looking right now? It doesn't mean that you have to go to your boss and say, "Hey, by the
time.
way, I'm looking for other opportunities." Like,
Right.
what is this fear? Or if somebody comes to you and gives you this role that you can say no.
Right. Well, I think that boils down to there's this fear, not necessarily fear, but it's an uncomfortable feeling because people don't do this a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so, really, rather than looking for a job, let's not call it looking for a job. Let's call it learning, like learning about
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
ecosystem as an executive. And so
Yeah.
that we're all lifelong learners. Good executives are lifelong learners, but we spend a lot of time focusing in certain areas. And I would argue if we're going to pivot that a little bit and you're going to do it now, you should always be learning about the job market. and learning about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, the second thing, which I will opine and say about, I think, is the fact that when you are doing that and learning, your attitude is shifted. It's no longer job searching. It's now learning. You are a different type of consumer. You should be looking for a job when you have a job. You could be looking for other
Yeah.
opportunities when you have a role, because your confidence is high. You are a
Totally.
more valuable resource, right?
Yes.
And if you're struggling with your job, you're not happy in your role, you're going to be a very different person. You're going to show up very differently when you're speaking to other folks, when you're doing the things that we're going to talk about in the second episode. But you're a very different product when you are a bruised banana, if you will. And so I think the
Totally.
key is really for you to be doing that at a time that you are confident, that you're feeling good about the contributions you're bringing to the table. And that's something that another firm or another company who is interested in needing good leadership, they're gonna feel that. A lot of this is brand management. A lot of this is about how you show up, and you always show up better when you're
Totally.
feeling like you're in a good place.
Absolutely. I have to comment on this because it's that what is our relationship with the scarcity of the situation? And
Such a great
so
topic. Yeah.
I talk about that because even having that experience of having leverage, I remember when I had two different companies that were fighting over me,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually called my dad because in that moment I wanted to go, this is a great moment when I can make this choice. And that
Right.
power, it makes you realize when you have options,
Mm-hmm.
how much that gives you the power
Right.
in the negotiation. And not that you want to always do that, but it's just a great experience to have so that you can recreate that when you need to
Absolutely
in that
right.
moment. But
Right.
it's
And I think
different.
it's very different. And I think when you are, I love that example as a means to learn about this process, right? There's so many things in our life that we really don't want to be good at, right? You don't want to be good
Yeah.
at recovering from an ankle injury.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to be good at weddings. I mean, there's certain
Yeah.
things that it's okay to stumble through. But as far as career management and career growth,
Yeah.
really, you want to be a learner about what
Yeah.
your value is. And I think the way you describe that is great, that you want to be able to have those skills when the time comes, and being able to be doing that more holistically, I think is super.
Yeah, and I think it helps I love how you said learner as well, because as a leader, I think it's also important to go through that experience yourself
Yeah. Oh,
and and
absolutely.
and and have that exploration, because I
Hmm.
think it just makes you better at hiring. It makes you better at thinking
Yeah.
about what are the
And
needs of the people around you.
absolutely
There's
better at
so many
recruiting.
other. Yes. Yes,
How many
exactly.
executives do you hear complain about XYZ in the marketplace, and you're like, oh, you haven't looked for a job in 10 years, have you?
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So
Right,
the
what
reality
comes to
is,
mind is what I have resume paper.
yes.
Remember when you had to
Oh my
have resume
gosh.
paper?
It's my favorite.
Like
Wow.
that would
I
definitely
totally
date
love
you.
that. Yeah, that dates you. But it's all those things. I mean, that's a little far back.
Yeah.
But a lot of ways, I think that especially, when people talk to me about how executives get roles, they talk about exclusively going through certain channels and things like that. And
Yeah,
it evolves. And
totally.
I think it evolves over year. And I think that's important. And I think that actually is a really great segue into my third point about when to look for a job. And I'm going to take a step back and remind us all that we've been hiring for roles. And let's just say in December of the year or end of the year, you've got budget season that's over, and now I
Hmm.
have recs. So I,
Yep.
as an executive who's trying to bring in good talent, I've got a couple months where I'm really working hard. But then the year starts to get in the way. Suddenly, I've
Yeah.
got I've got planning early year. I'm doing goals and objectives. I have got, then I'm going to get into the late spring, and that's, I've got a month there of hard work, and then I've got summer where people are in and out, and maybe my HR people are not around. Maybe I can't get approval for the
Yeah.
posting. Then I get the fall. People are back after Memorial Day, or what is that? Which one is it? Labor Day, and
Yeah.
and so we'll get a couple months, and then it's the holidays. So if we know as hiring managers that the cycles of business are painful, we
Yeah.
have jobs. So now if I put myself on the other side of that table and I'm looking for a role,
Hmm.
I've only got a couple months of the year where this stuff happens,
Yeah.
right? And so you can't wait until X happens. You've got to realize that this is a journey. And if you look at the calendar and understand the challenges you have as a leader, that's the same challenges as these other firms are going to have and these other companies are going to have when they're bringing on people. So for you to say, I'm going to only do it for a month, right? That's like saying I'm only going to do sit-ups this Friday and hope to gosh that my abs are great, come summertime.
Yeah,
It just doesn't work that
exactly.
way. And so I think at
Absolutely.
the end of the day, it's important for you to remember that companies and processes have a cycle and a season, and we need to be aware of those seasons, and you need to be able to work across that entire calendar.
I think that's so important. And it makes me think about the other side of that too is all of those things that get in the way and
Mm.
how we believe that's something about us.
It's
And
us,
so,
right?
right, that scarcity when we need that
Yeah.
job, then it's vacations, it's all these things.
Oh
I'm
my
like, oh my
gosh.
gosh, they don't like me. It seemed like everything went so well. I mean, I remember my friend Jennifer, she was up for a CFO job. She had interviewed with the board and the president, and everything went really well. Her and her husband had crafted a thank you note that was literally like 3 sentences, but it took them
Hmm.
2.5 hours. It was like one of
Yep, I
those.
know that.
She
Yep.
sent it and she got a thank you back like after a day. And she was like, oh my
Oh my
gosh,
gosh, I blew it.
they
Yeah.
passed on me because they just said thank you.
Right.
Because we get in our heads when we
Yeah.
are so
Hmm.
desperate. It's
Hmm.
another reason why, because
Right.
there's so many things that happen in the
Right.
business
And
and
then
we
when you
could
get
take ourselves out of it.
and then when she gets that job and she talks to that HR person, she'll say, "Yes, I remember that situation. The entire building had flooded that week, and
Yes,
we really
exactly.
wanted to keep you. So I dropped you a quick note, but literally, all our servers had been burned in a fire. Who knows, right? And then
Exactly. We
you
don't
look at it
know.
and go, "Oh, well, of course, thank you was sufficient." But at least, so perspective is funny, and the reality is that we're all really working hard and we're really trying hard as executives and leaders on both sides of that fence. So the reality is, be aware of that. But as a job, as a executive, somebody looking for a role, remember that, but also, know that there are seasons and there are times and a place for that.
Totally. Okay, so the when, this is so good. Tell us the 3 again.
So when, first and foremost, now, right? Look at your phone, figure out what
Immediately.
time it is, and that's the time to start. Okay, and because ultimately there is this is a better time than whether maybe you're unhappy with your role or whatever, et cetera. You want to be ahead of this game, right?
Yeah.
Secondly, this is a learning opportunity, so it's really you want to do it at a time when you are confident and you as a product are best, right?
Yeah.
And so you want to present in a very positive way. You want to know and believe in the value you bring to the table. So you really want to be doing it when you are working and things are going well at work, perhaps, and you're liking the role. Again, this is a learning thing. It's not a quitting thing. It's a learning thing.
Yeah.
So, and then finally, you really want to make sure that you realize that there's a calendar to this. There are seasons. I like to call them seasons of that process, and that there are times and places that you'll get the focus. Sometimes you won't get responses, and so remember that. So if you're going to start now, understand that you are in a certain season. If you're at the top of your game, understand that the calendar wise you're in a season. So it's really important that you remember those 3 things, is to figure out when you start kind of thinking about that next opportunity.
Oh, I love this. This is so applicable to everyone and
Absolutely.
so important. So the next time, this was part 1 talking about the when, the next one's going to be the how.
What
So
about the
make
how?
sure
Right?
that you get both of them because I'm sure that I don't know yet, but I'm sure the how is going to be as good as the when because
That's
this was
right. I'll have a couple of
incredible.
my secret. I do have a couple secret tips on how to do that that I'll share.
Ooh.
I stand by them. They're excellent little tips. But yeah, we'll talk about that next time.
Way to tease it out, James Caps.
Oh,
Well done. Well done. So, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you so much. And we love to hear your feedback. James and I are both on LinkedIn. We'd love for you to follow us. We'd love for you to comment, message us directly and
love your
say,
comments. Yep, love
here's
the
the
feedback.
questions. Yes, here's the questions are on my mind because I'll tell you what, those are the same as somebody else. So you'd be helping somebody else out. So make sure you drop us a note, share this with somebody, make sure you subscribe so you can catch all of these amazing things and especially the how,
That's right.
which
Don't
is
want to
coming
miss the
next
how.
time. So this has been Quick Take. Susie Tomanchuk and James Caps. We'll see you next time.